Howdy, folks. Steve Sweeney here with Headwaters For Heroes with another session of Conversations with Heroes. Today we have our good friend with us, Army Staff Sergeant James Dean Whetstone Jr., who we call JD. JD, how are you doing?
You know, I'm doing pretty great.
Awesome. I want to also recognize our sponsors. Today's session is brought to you by 7E Taxidermy and Outback Processing. I tell you what, 7E, Delbert Green over there has done a great job. It's a family affair over there, and they do some of the top mounts in the world. I tell you what, they've got an operation, and their meat processing is pretty much second to none. So we really want to thank them. They've been a huge supporter of Headwaters for Heroes for quite some time, and we can't thank them enough. So if you get a chance, check out 7E Taxidermy and Outback Processing. JD.
Yes, sir.
We're going to start. Where are you from? Originally.
Well, that's kind of a loaded question, but I grew up in Montana, and that I claim that as my home state.
Awesome.
And man, I miss Montana.
I can understand. Except in winter.
Except in winter. Exactly.
So, where did you grow up? I mean, was it in Montana or?
Yeah, Montana.
Okay.
From like 2.5 to 17 or 18. I don't know. 1999, 2000.
So what school did you? I mean, you went to high school
in Portland, Oregon.
Portland, Oregon. So you
Yep.
did move.
Yep.
Okay.
Moved from there to Portland, Oregon to be closer to family.
Uh-huh.
And then
Was it liberal then, or?
I didn't pay attention to any of that. But looking back, I'm like, maybe it was.
Okay.
But
did you play sports? What was your life like in Portland? Going to school.
I did play football for the first year. They put me on the JV team right off the bat as a freshman, which is not very heard of.
Mm-hmm.
But because I was fast, they're like, we're gonna put you there, and then they put me as a running back, as the backup running back, and then later on they realized I really didn't know anything about plays. They're like, we're gonna put you as corner, and that's where I actually, as a cornerback, that's where I actually kind of excelled. So
good. Good student, bad student? Medium student. Well, you got to be somewhere. And, it's like I tell people when I was in high school, I hated school. And my dad convinced me to go to college. And I loved college.
That's good.
And, I went and got a bachelor's degree, and I absolutely loved college. I hated high school. I couldn't get out of high school soon enough, and I really wasn't that good of a student.
I kind of dropped out.
Yeah.
Just FYI.
Okay, well, I know a lot of people like that. So what, past high school, what did you do after high school, after dropping out? Did you go straight in the Army, or what paths did you follow?
Well, it was a few months after dropping out that I think I was working at Arby's at the time, and I walked past the recruiting station. I couldn't tell you how many times. Going to work, never paid attention. Usually I was high.
Okay.
Mom, sorry. So one day, months after I dropped out, I think 6-7 months after I dropped out, I happened to look up, and across the way, I saw the Marine recruiting station. It went Marine, Army, Air Force, Navy, I believe. And I was like, oh, I want to be a Marine. Now, mind you, I was smoking a joint on the way to work. But I saw it, and I was like, my life ain't really going anywhere. Smoking weed. You know what? Instead of going to work, I went straight to the recruiting office. I walked in. I said, "Hey, I'm a high school dropout. What do I need to do to sign the papers?" They're like, "Sorry, we only take recruits once a month that have dropped out once they get their GED." I was like, actually, I'm not going to repeat what I said, but
It's clear you can.
I said, "Oh,
Mom might not like it, but
oh yeah, Mom." So I said something. His jaw dropped, and I did an about face and walked over to the Air Force. Skipped right over the Army. And the Air Force recruiter was like, nope. I was like, oh, okay. Walked into the Navy, and they're like, did you graduate? I was like, no. They're like, sorry. I was like, well, damn. I guess it is Army. Let's go walk in there. I walked in, and I was like, look, I'm high as hell. What do I need to do to join the military? Well, Army at that point. And he goes, well, go get your GED, stop smoking weed, and once you get that, come and talk to me again. I was like, oh, actually, that's a plan. Got it.
yeah.
Finally went to work, and then a little bit later, like a week later, I joined Portland Community College with their GED program. And I didn't realize it was a bunch of old people trying to get their GED. I was like, and at that time, they were like 25, 26. So, they were old.
How old were you at this time?
18.
18?
18.
Okay.
And so sat in the class, did the work, actually did the homework and everything. And about halfway through the length of the GED program, like a month and a half, 2 months, I got really bored. I was like, I know all this. I was even helping the teacher teach. And I was like, I walked up to her and I was like, can I just go get my GED right now? I was like, you're not teaching me anything I don't know. She kind of looked at me funny. She's like, how long have you been out of school? I was like, well, that's not an issue. I was like, can I just go? She goes, sure. She signed off on it, went and took my GED, and by the time I got the results, the GED moderator, is that what they're called?
I have no idea.
Yeah, we'll just go with that.
We'll go with that. The moderator.
She goes, are you sure you want to drop out of high school? Because I got some of the highest scores that she's ever seen. I was like, what does that mean? She's like, you're not dumb? I was like, I dropped out. I'm pretty dumb. Made her laugh.
Or you were smart enough to.
Well, but so then I went and took my ads fab, and I got like I don't know, what was it, like a 115. And they're like, you can have all these different jobs, but because you only have a GED, you get cut in half. I was like, okay. So infantry, tanker, scout, like combat engineer. I was like, well, I don't want to be infantry, but I want to be on the ground. And so he showed me the recruiting for tanker and Calvary Scout. I was like, Calvary Scout had motorcycles and four-wheelers and horses. And I think it was from like the 60s when they were showing this. And so I was like, you know what? I think I want to be a Calvary Scout. And that's how I became a Calvary Scout.
That's awesome. That's awesome. But so you actually you knew where you wanted to go. So how quick did they get you to boot camp?
I think so. I signed the papers in like November of 2002, and then March of 2003 I was in basic. I guess they didn't have any openings, or I don't know. So I was in the early program,
Mm-hmm.
and I was going and learning how to march. quite interesting because some people have no coordination.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, they all seem to be in sync.
You
It
know what?
eventually gets pounded into them.
You are absolutely right. It was fun, though.
So where were you first stationed after coming out of boot camp?
Schweinfurt, Germany.
Really?
Yep. The big red one. Quarter cav. Or 1/4 cav. That probably one of my favorite duty stations. I'm still friends with a lot of people from there. And we all deployed together in 2004, so Germany was fun. Oh, Lord.
Yeah, when I was in Germany, my dad was stationed there. I was young, so there wasn't a lot of debauchery going on for me. But so, all right, you're made it through boot camp. You're in Germany, and they deploy y'all in 2004. Where did they send you?
Oh, now you're asking me to pull memories out. Camp McKenzie near Samar, Iraq. That was my first deployment. But we actually ended up like north, south, east, west. We ended up everywhere. But Bob Normandy. That's where I actually met a lot of like Navy SEALs.
Mm-hmm.
That one of them told me to jump on the quad and go outside the wire with him. I was like, okay.
So, yeah, and we were talking before sitting down to do this session. You were actually a sniper. When did you actually get into that portion? I mean, was it almost right away?
No. It was in 2006, right before my 2007 deployment. And then, yeah.
So what does it take to become a sniper? You know, we hear about, Chris Kyle, obviously, everybody's heard of Chris Kyle.
Yeah.
Okay. But we've got, and on our pro staff with Headwaters For Heroes, we do have an Army sniper that does a lot of training for our kids.
He was my guide when, I forget his name, but.
Spencer Shea is who I'm talking about.
No.
At any rate, so what does it take? What does it take to become a sniper?
Patience. Actually learning. I don't remember a lot going through there. TBI.
Right.
Lost a lot of memories, but for me and me only, it took patience because I had ADHD. I wanted to be on the go, and then actually sitting still and learning how to shoot long distance and learning the math behind, because the longer you go out, a lot more variables come in.
Right.
So not that I'm that long of a distance shooter, but I could reach out. So.
Yeah, I think we talk about this with some of the people we take hunting. The pronghorns that we go after. We're shooting 400 or 500 yards, and me personally, I've never shot 500 yards, but I hear a lot of people talk about it that there's really not that much difference up to 500 yards, but past that, the variables start kicking in.
Yes. Now you're looking at barometric pressure. You're looking at the heat versus the cold.
Right.
Crosswind, and then the further you go out, you have another crosswind going the other direction. I've never really shot that far, but I've had to deal with crosswinds before, which you just adjust your scope and do the math. Right. That's why you have your spotter, because then they get the distance, the windage, and all of that.
So. Right. So once you're a sniper, and what was your role as a sniper when you were in theater? Were you out searching for people? Were you just cover? What was your role?
I was mostly cover. They would pull me out and be like, they'd clear a house, and then me and my spotter would go up. Let me rephrase that. My first deployment, I was the spotter. Later on, I became the shooter. But wow, I haven't really talked about this in a while.
Well, I mean, it has been a while. So, you know, like I mentioned Chris Kyle a while ago, and we know his family, and they're great people. And the movie, you know, it did show a lot of that patience. He just sat and waited. But it also showed some other things, like what you were looking for, and, you know, even down to, well, that kid could be carrying a bomb.
Right.
Tell us about some of. Do you have any of those type of experiences that?
The one that really comes to mind is I was doing an Overwatch, and I saw somebody digging on the alongside the road, and we had a convoy coming through the next day. So they dropped me a day and a half early to keep watch, and I started noticing like somebody was digging alongside the road. I was like, okay, that's weird. Whatever. Called it in because it's suspicious activity.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody else just kind of on a scooter just kind of dropped something, kept going. I was like, wait, hold on. And then somebody came along and buried it. So now we figured out it is an IED. It was a cell phone one.
Mm-hmm.
And so EOD came out and cleared it, and the convoy went through. So that.
Okay, so they drop you a day and a half. So did the locals know you're there?
This particular moment, what we did is we went and cleared the house.
Mm-hmm.
I helped clear it, blah blah blah, and then I went to the roof and stayed there. Then they left, and left me and my spotter there for a day and a half, and then came and picked me up afterwards.
So, you know, and I'm going to keep digging at this sniper stuff, because so often, and I haven't had the opportunity to really talk to one of you guys at Snipers that to really see what it was about. But, you know, we're often led to believe that snipers just do a lot of killing.
It's not all about just that. It's doing Overwatch, looking, making sure what's going on. Now, there is times that, yep, it's clear, go. I personally never had to. I had low ranking. Now I know a few snipers that did a lot, and then others they just did Overwatch and that was it.
So you never had to actually pull the trigger on somebody as a sniper?
As a sniper.
Okay. Because you're in war. I get it. I mean, you're gonna pull the trigger. Because I've also heard some of these guys talk about the snipers, as you say in Overwatch, that, you know, you were basically the guys on the ground. You were their security. You were making sure everything was clean, making everything like you found the ID or saw the ID taking place. So but it's a lot of people, like I said, think a sniper means that's what you did. You went out and you just shot people, and it's interesting to see that, you know, that it's not just about the killing. And even though I think our military is it really should be, or is supposed to be, you know, there to kill and break things, but we understand in war that there's things that they allow and they don't allow.
It was to the point where we actually we couldn't make the decision ourselves. We had to call it up to hire, and then if they said, yeah, go ahead, then it would.
Right.
But me personally, I never had to as a sniper. So.
Okay. Well, when you weren't being the sniper, what else were you doing over there?
Our first deployment, our own route clearance, like we did everything. Second deployment, we were kicking in doors. We were literally looking for people, and just because we cleared a house doesn't mean we actually found that person that we were looking for. So once we would take pictures and get their names, and if they had ID, we'd take a picture of their ID, and then we'd go about our merry way. Sometimes we would find a cache. Sometimes we wouldn't. Sometimes it was always different. You never knew what was going to happen.
Well, I can imagine. You kick a door open, you don't know what to expect over there. So I'm assuming that in some of those kicking doors open, firefights ensued and different things like that.
It happened. It not like every single time, but like it did happen. I can't remember, it was 2007 or 2009, but we were clearing the house, and I was a point man. And the one and only time I decided to wear my neck guard, where you snap it on the front,
right?
I get shot in the neck.
Okay. I'm assuming that the neck guard worked since
I'm
you're here
still
with
here.
us.
And it was like right here. I had a big old welt.
Wow.
And then here's the funny part. When I actually ended up getting back up because they went and did their clearing, I ran straight for the stairs because the guy was on the stairs. I ran up, and as I was running outside to chase this guy, there was a low-hanging wire because it was at night, and I had my nods on. But I turned them up because the lights were on in the house.
Right.
I was running. It caught my my MVGs. I do like the clothesline, land on my back, knock the wind out of me, and like the next guys behind me like started shooting across because the dude jumped over. Didn't get him, but we ended up losing him because he ran somewhere. But yeah, to this day I laugh about that part. I didn't at first because I was mad. I was like, God, but I didn't see it, and my feet came up like 6 feet, and I'm only 5'9". But oh man,
What was the hardest part about being over there? I ask this question to most everybody, and everybody's got a different experience or take on what's the hardest part. And we're not talking about, we haven't gotten to your injuries yet, but overall, being over in another country that is, I've never been there, but I've not heard one good thing about Iraq or Afghanistan. But for you, what was the worst part of it?
The one thing that's coming to my mind right up front is not being able to take my gear off during my first deployment. And we always, 24/7, we had to wear our gear unless we were sleeping. So anytime we left our chew or anything like that to go to the chow hall, we had to wear our gear. And it was like, come on, I know we get rocket attacks and things like that, but we have bunkers, we can run. Like, I was just like, let me cool down a little bit. And then my second deployment, it was more, actually, it didn't seem as hot for some reason. But we were actually able to like go to the chow hall and things like that without our gear. But I think just always having to wear our gear. Partly why my back's so messed up.
Yeah, well, we see that with a lot of our veterans that have back issues now because of all the gear you had to carry and whatnot. But, so, but it's interesting because everybody gets a different take on the country. Some of them say, it's kind of a cool place. And then other people is like, God, it's a rat hole.
Well, it is a rat hole. Like, I won't disagree with that. But, like, this one family that we would always do security along the road, like, we always had somebody, the family would come and cook for us. Like, they would make extra food and bring it to us. Like, the people were nice. Like, well, until they weren't. But
Right. Yeah, the enemy of my cousin is my enemy, or something like that.
yeah,
You know, but I've heard stories of where families they befriended the soldiers and they had a great relationship, and then it changes. And
well, usually they get forced to
yeah,
do something, and like this one particular family, they were just they kind of told us in a way that something was wrong without actually like really saying anything, like coming out and being like, hey, there's something right there, don't. But we kind of caught on ish. It took a little bit, but we finally caught on, and there was an IED that they were waiting for us to drive over, which we actually ended up finding, and we shot it with the 25 Mike from the Bradley. Oh, that was fun.
I do hear a lot of those stories too from some of these guys, that some of the fun stuff that y'all did get to do. But when you went into combat, you're kicking doors down. What runs through your mind? Now, keep in mind, I've never been in combat. What goes through your mind? Is it an adrenaline rush? Is it fear? Is it what it goes through your mind when you're getting ready to engage like that?
Driving up, there's fear. Then you start anticipating, so the adrenaline starts coming. And then for me, I kind of just, my mind went blank and did what I had to do. And just, if I was point, call up the preacher. Then I went through. And it just, everything just kind of, you do it so much that it's muscle memory. Like during training.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we train so much. It's for muscle memory.
Right.
And it seemed like for me, my mind would just go blank. And I just did what I had, like, just go do what you do.
Right. Well, that's interesting because, I can't imagine it. I just, for the life of me, can't imagine it. I know my dad served in Korea and Vietnam, and so he saw action, and he never could explain it to me.
That's really the only way I can only explain myself. But, and like you said, everybody's different. Some people are so much thinkers that they're thinking through the whole thing. Me, my brain, like, I guess I'm thinking about what's going on, and everything else falls back. But I feel like my brain or my mind just shuts down, and I focus on exactly what's happening. Nothing else.
As far as in your fob and stuff, did y'all take a lot of rocket fire or mortar or anything like that, or was?
Oh yeah.
So how do you rest through all that? I know that's the purpose of them attacking, is to wear your ass down, but how do you train yourself? Because I'm a very light sleeper.
Oh, I am not.
If I'm sleeping and I'm so light, if somebody's snoring in the same room, forget it. I'm going outside because I cannot sleep. I'm a very, very light sleeper.
Well, then don't sleep in the same room as me.
Ron over there running the board, he's another one. I ain't sleeping in the same room with him because of the snoring, man. But how, when there's this stuff going on, there's always the fear of an attack. How do you get your rest? How do you close it all out and rest?
In the beginning, my first deployment, I woke up for everything, no matter what. By my second deployment, I was sleeping through rocket attacks and mortars and things like that. Unless it hit my tent, then I kind of woke up. But
I guess that would wake you up. So, is it just you become insensitive to it, or?
I guess in a way, or you just don't fear. If it's your time to go, it's your time to go.
Well, I'm a firm believer of that, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. The blessings of God, and puts us where we need to be. But I don't know. It's just like I said, being such a light sleeper as I am, and I don't get a lot of sleep because it don't take anything to wake me up. I couldn't imagine trying to function in that arena.
I guess in a way you do become insensitive about it, or you just accept it. Maybe it's more acceptance.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. You know,
I mean, once you realize what you're doing, what your job is, like, you don't know what's gonna happen. I mean, you could be walking to the chow hall, and you mortar attack, and
yeah,
that happened in 2006 in Missoula. Before I got there, the whole chow, like, they hit the chow hall, and a bunch of people, like, it was bad.
Wow. Wow. Well, you know, war's tough at best, and we've seen a lot of guys come back with PTSD. They're shaken, they're rattled. It's had a lot of names over the years, but it's always been there. No matter what war it is, it's always been there. I know my dad said, well, we used to call it battle fatigue, and it's been called a bunch of different things.
Mortar shock or shell shock.
Shell shock, yeah, that's another one. And you know, it's inevitable. I'm guessing. You know, you're over there, you're dealing with this the whole time, and then you come back and you're reliving it, you're dealing with it. And we'll talk about that a little more here as we move along. So you're over there, you're a sniper, you've acclimated, for all practical purposes, you're a fighting machine. So when did you get injured and become a Purple Heart recipient?
2007. Did I tell you before I tell you that story? Did I tell you the story about, like, on patrol, and we were going around the pyramid, and
No.
Supposedly it's King David's burial place?
Tell us about that.
So one night, 2007 in Missoula, we were doing a patrol, and I didn't know what it was. All I knew, it was a temple or a tomb. But when you drove down the center of the street, if you were closest to the, I guess, tomb, like, there was this weird, eerie feeling, like, undescribable.
Really?
Yeah. But the other half of the street, like on the other side of the truck, because you would be driving down the center, they're like, hey, dude, we don't know what you're talking about.
More like a haunting feeling. Or spiritual? Or
Actually, that's a good way to put it. It was kind of spiritual, but it was, like, eerie and different. Something you've never felt before.
Wow.
And at first, I thought I was tripping. I'm tired.
But you're not smoking dope anymore.
Definitely not for years at that point. So I was talking to my truck commander, and I was like, look, let me prove it to you. I was like, let's go around the block the other way where you're on the other side of the street. He's like, well, okay, our patrol is almost over. Fine, whatever. Well, guess what?
He felt it.
He felt it, and the dismount felt it. The gunner was like, I think I do. I don't know. But the gunner was weird anyways. No, I'm just kidding. And so I was like, hey, let's stop the trucks and just kind of walk around the street real quick and just experiment. He's like, actually, that's not a bad idea. And you could literally take 2 steps from the center of the street, 2 steps towards now it wasn't very far from, like, the street, sidewalk, and then, like, 2 feet of grass, and then the base of the temple. We would take 2 steps towards the tomb, and just, like, I still get goosebumps from even thinking about it. And I got goosebumps back then. Like, it was just that weird, spiritual, haunting, everything all in once.
Wow.
And then you walk back across that line, nothing. Just like regular day. That's probably one of the weirdest feelings I've ever felt in my life.
Wow.
And nothing's ever happened like that.
Yeah, one of them ghost shows going to hear this, and they're going to be heading over there to check it out. But that is incredible. That is incredible. So was it pretty much all the way around, or what access you had?
You just could feel all the way around.
All the way around.
Yep. And we did patrol it all the way around 2 times, one way and then the other way. And then we, on one side, we didn't walk all the way around it, but still to this day, it's the weirdest feeling. And I still remember it. It was like yesterday.
Okay, so you got this weird feeling. You go back to your fob and you start telling people.
Nope.
Nope.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
So now we're like, okay, it's time for us to go back to the fob. And that's when we got hit by an IED. And that's when I got my Purple Heart. I was considered like a walking knockout at first.
Mm-hmm.
And but I don't remember any of this. This is just what stories I've been told. And so we got hit, and the dismount behind me saw my head go down for about 30 seconds and nothing. And he said that he grabbed the back of my, reached over the seat, grabbed my head, and started shaking it. Might not have been the brightest idea, but
want to wake you up,
And he said that within a few seconds from, actually, let me tell you this. When we first got hit, I actually remember that part, and I remember the dust. I felt like this wave, and then all of a sudden, all this dust just starting to rise.
Now you're in a Humvee or
Humvee, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was driving with a thermal camera, not NVGs or nods or.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a screen that was a thermal screen right in front of me. That's how I was driving. I remember looking at it going white because of the flash, and then this dust. And by the time it got to about eye level, I don't remember anything after that.
Was that dust inside the Humvee or just all around?
It might have been smoke, dust. I mean, the vehicles are dusty, so I just smoke, dust, everything, but it was rising from the floor up.
Wow.
And by the time it got here, I was like, huh, this is weird. And then next thing I know, I'm waking up and people are looking over me, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Wow.
But they said that I was walking around, but I didn't have my Kevlar on. I didn't have my NVGs, and I was pulling security on a dead end of an alley around the corner.
So somebody got rattled.
Yeah, just a bit. And then when they were asking for my social and the concussion,
right,
I wasn't giving them anything. When they would ask for my weapon serial number, I was giving them my social security. Or when they would ask for my what is it? It's CIA shit number or whatever. It has your blood type and all of that. I was just saying weird things. And they're like, yeah, he's done. So I ended up sitting on the medic's lap, female.
Oh, that's nice.
I wish I could remember it. And they said that I was dry heaving and puking so much. And then I guess I finally fell asleep or passed down or whatever it was. And that's when I remember waking up. And I was laying on a table, and I had the sergeant major, first sergeant, platoon leader, somebody else, and I know what he looks like. I can't. Oh, Company commander, or troop commander, as the scout world. And yeah, I was just like, why are y'all looking at me?
So from there, then, I mean, did you go back out, or did they send you?
No, they put me on the radio, or no. I was off for like 3-4 days. Couldn't go to sleep the first night, which I guess I could have, but just being monitored for the next 3-4 days, and I guess I healed, and they're like, okay, you're going back out. Let's go.
So that's where your TBI comes from, correct?
One of them.
That's right. You have 2 Purple Hearts, don't you?
And me and one of my for my first deployment, me and my buddy are putting in for posthumous award for So we're thinking about doing it, but we're just like, well, it's done. Like, whatever. So we're not sure. But we keep talking about it every once in a while.
At least you're talking about it. I mean, that's important. So let's okay, they release you, you're back out in the field.
Mm-hmm.
Did you experience, when you're out in the field, did you experience any issues at that point with focus?
Focus, not so much, but my short-term memory, I started noticing, like, I was like, can you say that one more time? And that's when I really needed to start writing things down, but I thought I still had a good memory, so.
But how did it affect you as a sniper?
Yeah.
Because you talk about the sniper, you got to be patient. You're doing a lot of watching.
I wrote a lot of things down at that point.
Okay.
Like, I really was. And, like, I made sure to write down what I saw and then called it in. Because if I called it in right away, I would lose train of thought. So I just put keywords, and then I could just.
Right.
But I didn't have to do that a lot. So, and I didn't have a lot of missions. I mean, I had a few, but I mean, it wasn't a lot.
So how much longer before you return stateside?
Eight or 9 months. But it didn't, like, affect me a lot at first. It seems to be a progression of, like, as time goes on, it seems like my short-term memory gets worse.
Which is something we see with traumatic brain injury. And that's the thing that we do try to express to everybody is, you guys go over there, you fight, you come back. Even if they don't have traumatic brain injury, there's so much that you guys deal with, and it's forever.
And just even PTSD, your short-term memory gets, because you're wanting to forget almost, but it's a defense mechanism in your brain that puts it in a black box. But the more you talk about it, it seems to help.
Well, and that's what we believe. The more you talk about it, the more you're open and sharing about it, then things do get better. I mean, that's the whole purpose of our program. So now, did you retire, or did they medically board you out, or how was that put?
I got a medical retirement.
Their choice or yours?
I am not actually sure. He made it seem like it was my decision, but I think it was going to happen anyways.
Yeah.
And it was actually after my first surgery. I noticed on one of my PT tests, running the 2 mile, I was literally about 15 to 20 seconds slower than usual.
Really?
And I was like, that doesn't seem right. I know my times. I know how I run. Like, something's off. And I started thinking about it, and I was like, well, my left hip does kind of hurt. Like, I always pushed through it, didn't really dwell on it. So I was like, well, okay, let me go get an x-ray. I told my primary, and he goes, yeah, you're going in for an MRI. I was like, okay, cool. Next thing I know, I'm talking to a surgeon. They said that they found, like, I think a 1.5 millimeter or centimeter cyst, and that, like, some ligaments are kind of messed up, and I had a cam type impingement on my left hip. I was like, can you explain? I don't know what that means. Basically, what that is you're building, your bone is like creating calcium or whatever,
Right.
and it impinges on the movement of your hip.
Right.
So they're like, well, we need to go in and shave the bone, shave the or the femoral head, and shave the socket. I was like, okay, cool. The surgeon also said, you got hips of a 75-year-old. I was like, what the? What do you mean?
And how old were you at this time?
My first surgery was when I was 28.
Wow.
I was like,
Was that something that's maybe hereditary, or did it come from everything you experienced in the Army?
The way that I understand it, it's could be hereditary, but being in the Army and with all that weight and doing all the extra stuff and being a constant move and all of that just aggravated it and set it on faster, like way faster. That's
Right.
kind of the way that I understand it. So before I went into surgery, my surgeon's like, look, I'm going to go ahead and put you in for a med board, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I still got a few good years. Just fix my hip so I can get back. And he's like, no. You've already got 3 deployments. He's like, you got a few things wrong with your back. And I was like, oh, you actually looked at my records? I was like, yeah. And he's like, think about this. You're 28 years old. You have, I think he was a 4-year-old or 5-year-old son at the time. He's like, do you want to be playing with your grandkids at 65 and not be in a wheelchair? He's like, if you keep going, you're going to be in a wheelchair. I was like, I had to think about that. I was like, then I don't have to walk anymore.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I am so kidding. But it did give me something to think about.
Right.
And I was like, well, yeah, of course. I mean, I want to play with my grandkids, maybe even great grandkids, and not be in a wheelchair. Well, so after the surgery, I kept telling him no. I was like, no, I want to stay in. I want to deploy again. We're getting ready to go to Africa. I want to go. Well, after my surgery and how painful it was, I was like, maybe he's right. Maybe he's on to something. So I talked to him again on one of my checkups, and I was like, hey, is that offer still on for the medical retirement? He goes, the paperwork's all ready. All I have to do is send it. He's like, I already knew you were going to choose it. I was like, you don't know me.
So, anything left to tell about Iraq?
We all had to embrace the suck.
Embrace the suck, yeah.
I mean, we had our good times. I can tell you a lot of stories about funny things and fun things that we did. Maybe I shouldn't. But I mean, we had to take the good with the bad.
Well, you made a point there about the fun things you did. You know, that's the other thing. When people see on TV with different shows and stuff, you know, they a lot of times show the guys in the fob. They're playing football or they're playing baseball or they're doing something. And how real is that from your experience?
For mine, Baseball, I don't remember playing baseball, at least where we were at. Somebody had a football, and we'd throw it around for about 5 minutes and go, nope, too hot. Let's go. But, I mean, we had gaming systems. We had, like, later on, we had a lot more leeway on what we could do. Like, we actually had better internet in our rooms. So we could video chat our family a little bit. Sorry, Mom. I probably should have called you more. I just now thought about that. But but one thing that, especially during my first deployment, we had the Xbox. And if we weren't doing anything, we were either eating, or playing pool, because they had in the USO, we had like some pool tables, or eating, or playing video game, or eating. We ate a lot. But yeah, I mean, we had our things to do, but
Parties?
I'm not going to confirm or deny that. Nope. Hey, look at the time. I got to go. No. Now, at Anaconda, they did actually eventually put in like a little dance hall, but that was like Air Force controlled. We didn't have any of that in the Army.
Yeah, I've heard the Air Force always brings the good food and the good toys.
Yeah.
Well, so when did they release you? When did you walk away?
August 21st, 2014.
2014.
And that was just shy of 13 years or 12 years. I think just shy of 12 years. I don't know. Somewhere
So
around
12 years, and you really wanted to serve longer.
Oh, I was doing the full 20. I still had 4 more years on my contract. And when I started my med board, they were looking at me for my 7, E7, and to become a platoon sergeant or staff, basically. And I remember my first sergeant like going, "Hey, you started your med board. Guess what? We just started looking for your E7, because now it's just paperwork and like schools you done and things like that, instead of going to a board. The paperwork goes to a board, but not you." And he goes, "Well, you're getting a med board." Literally ripped the paper up in front of me for my E7. I was like, asshole. But it did make sense. Like, if I got promoted to 7, I wasn't going to get that pension because I was under like 16 years.
Right.
It would have just been nice to have that, but
yeah,
that would have taken up a slot for somebody else for a year, 6 months, however long.
Yeah, you came a long ways. Came from walking into recruiting high as a kite to wanting to serve our country for 20 years.
I wanted even more than that, but
and that to me is incredible. I admire that. I know I talk too much about my dad. He served 23 years, retired as a lieutenant colonel.
Oh, that's awesome.
And and I've heard of those guys that they call them lifers. That they're in there for, seems like eternity till, almost they die. But we don't see that long-term service like we used to.
I agree.
Most of them get in, and whatever that first sign up is, 3 years, 4 years, whatever it is, most of them are getting out.
I do have a buddy. I'm not going to mention his name, but we went to basic together, and now he's a sergeant major.
He's still active duty.
Yep, still active.
That's good.
And I talk to him every now and again just to check in. And I tell him every time, "Dude, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you." He's like, "I wish you were still in." I was like, "Yeah, you don't."
Well, and I admire that your service to our country, and we're living through a period where the military has really changed, and it's not the first time it's done it. I remember my dad talking about it after Vietnam. The military really changed, but seems like this one's really gotten way out there. We're living in a society where transgenderism is more important than almost anything. And there for a while, the big issue in the Army was gays, and it was don't ask, don't tell.
Hey, you do you.
Yeah.
Just don't bring it to me.
Right.
Now, if you two connect, fine. Just don't flaunt it.
Yeah.
And I get that. Fine. Whatever. Probably what I'm about to say is going to be, but Biology 101. Male and female.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Unless you're some organism that's microscopic, that's asexual. That's way different.
Yeah.
But you get taught in Biology 101, 2 genes. It either you get an extra chromosome or you don't, which makes you male or female.
Right.
And it just, the biggest thing is, I don't care what you do. Your life, your body.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't be trying to push it on everybody.
Yeah.
Because it is a choice. It's a mental choice. And to me, it's a mental health issue.
And then I agree with it. A lot of people don't. There's a lot of people that do. But, I was talking to one of the people that we hunt with. He's a former Marine, and he's one of our guides and does a great job with us. But he made the comment, he goes, man, I'm a Marine. They had us going to sensitivity training.
Yeah, I had it too as a combat MOS, especially in later years.
It's like, what are we supposed to be sensitive about? I mean, but that's part of what, and as a civilian, we don't have a clear picture into the military and how it works and the structure. All we have is what media tells us. And you hear so many problems out there. You hear so many, and whether it's true or not, I heard the military is going to do sex change operations.
They have.
And that's not what our military is for. And I don't think, everybody says, well, you got the GI Bill. They join the Army so they can get an education. Why not join the Army to get a sex change? It's two different things, but
that's night and day.
Yeah.
Literally.
But in your time, I mean, you were there.
I was there when there was don't ask, don't tell. I was there when they abolished that. And then right around 2014, I started hearing rumors about transgender and all this. Anyways, yeah. And so I'm kind of glad I got out when I did. But I still wish I was kind of in, because I love the training. I love being with my soldiers. And as probably almost every soldier said, the camaraderie.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think too is the structure. A lot of guys come out and they don't have that structure, and that's where we start to see problems. They don't quite fit well.
I mean, I agree.
And that's, but, and I've been told that, I've been told this, and that apparently, a lot of the drill sergeants say, look to the guy to your left and the guy to your right. Those are your new best friends. Forget about your friends at home. This is who's going to save your ass, and you're going to save their ass. And you build that brotherhood.
That's part of why we train so much.
Yeah. And then when you get out, you don't have that. And That's where we see a lot of the veterans, and that's why part of the reason why we do what we do. And we have hunting operations where, we bring in 4 guys.
Oh,
And
I love it.
It's all about you guys being together and being able to kind of, I wouldn't say relive, but you feel safe.
Yeah.
You're able to talk. And with our situation, yeah, you and I at that one hunt, we sat up late and we drank a lot of whiskey.
Hey, you twisted my arm to drink that whiskey.
Yeah. I am pretty strong, as everybody can see. But it's being out here with your brothers just gives you the time to.
Whether you served with them or not.
That's right.
It doesn't matter because we all signed that blank check.
That's right. And I tell the story how we got started. Was that first young man, Matt Deathridge, that came into my home. And my dad, said, well, I'd like to come over and visit with him. And I was apprehensive at first. It's like, come on, Dad, you're 80-something years old. And Dad never talked to me about his service. And, he was a normal guy. I never saw anything different about him. He was a successful businessman, retired from the Army, went on, took over the family business, was successful, retired from that. Actually, we sold the company, but he served on church boards. He was a Baptist deacon. He served on the local water board, helped get it built and going, and just active. And just everybody loved him. And then when I sat and watched Matt and my dad. Matt was 21 at the time. My dad was in his 80s. You would have thought they served together. Mm-hmm. The way they talked, and they were rattling off the acronyms and talking about all these different things. And I saw a transformation of Matt, who was reserved when he came up there. But when he was with my dad, he was talkative. And that's when I thought, this could work. And so I started putting more together. And it was amazing. I could watch guys like you walk in, and everybody's kind of like, oh, what the hell am I doing here? I don't want to be here. And then within an hour, people are laughing, and people are. It's like, yeah, I was there, and we came in. Oh yeah, you remember Captain? And it's just all of a sudden you didn't serve together, but all of a sudden you guys knew each other.
Yep, that quickly.
And it's amazing to watch. And like I said, with the PTSD, I think is a big issue. But even without it, it's very difficult for a lot of these guys. And we see a huge turnover in employment with some of these guys because they don't have the structure. In the Army, you had your job. There was a way you did it. And all too often what we see nowadays in the workforce is a lot of laziness. A lot of people I don't want to do it that way. I want to do it my way.
Because they think they're entitled.
That's valid. That's a valid point. So, and you've wanted to serve, and you reached a point your body said, dude, we can't do it.
You're done.